Hello there, it's been 5 months since I got the Benchmade 5561 Mini Griptillian. I gave this blade a very positive review at the time, but now it's time to revisit the blade. I'm going to do a brief follow-up on the knife, how it's performed, and whether or not the high praise I heaped on it all the way back in June is still worthy. So the blade shape's still a winner. I've got it compared to two other knives here, the Real Steel E571, and what I feel is its closest competitor for best new knife of this year, the Spyderco Mantra. So you can see the Spyderco Mantra is obviously a flipper, but they're both kind of new takes on familiar designs, and they both do that thing very well. So starting off with the blade shape, still a winner, just solid utility, mix of flat there and a nice little belly trailing up to the tip, which is nice and fine. The length sits just at that 3-inch mark, nice and unalarming. Look, a Griptillian with a flat grind would make for like a super excellent EDC knife because it would just edge out this little saber grind number in food prep, but it does the standard just fine job for cutting and poking and all the other stuff you're going to use your everyday carry knife for. I'll just run in some footage of me cutting some various things. And I guess it's probably, while I'm still on the blade, time to talk about the steel. Now, 20 CV, definitely my favourite steel for a pocket knife. Has an excellent edge holding capability, up there with S110V, ZDP 189, all those steels that generally are either pretty much so carbon that they rust, or that they are horrible to sharpen. So one of the two. That's just another comparison blade there. This is the Ontario Rat number 1, just for size, just to show that it is definitely a small little knife. That's the other classic Benchmade, the 940. So when I think Benchmade, I think of like the Griptillian, the 940, the Adamas, and like the McHenry and Williams, those sorts of knives. It's the ZT0909 up above it there as well. So yeah, very cool class leading knife. Now for me, I've sort of become a little bit less of a fan of the axis lock. When I got this, I was really hooked to axis locking knives. Has just become like the thing, but what you kind of have to do is choose on this knife between having a solid lockup or a really nice flipping action. I chose the nice flipping action because I like to play with my knives, and the trade-off is that it does wiggle a little bit. There's a little bit of blade play, and if you dial that blade play back in on the pivot, you don't flick the knife open as easily. So you just have to kind of choose your poison there. With regard to the handle, look, after handling some other knives in this class, it's starting to feel a little bit small. It's got good jimping, it's got good grip, jimping at the back, jimping up near there where your thumb rests, above the lock, jimping underneath. But there just doesn't feel like there's enough of it. I kind of feel like my fourth finger, my pinky finger, is kind of grasping at air on almost not much, which, you know, isn't particularly the biggest deal in the world for an occasional use EDC knife, but when I bust open the Mantra, like so, the Mantra sticks a little bit out and it's just a bit more, frankly, ergonomic in hand, just a little bit better at wrapping your whole hand around it. But really, it's still, you know, about as good as you'd want, and especially other knives of this size. The Mantra is slightly bigger. Other knives of this size, you're thinking like, what have I used to have? I used to rock that Leatherman Crater, about the same size handle, much more comfortable. Nice rounded G10. Blue liners and blue spaces to add some visual depth. I chatted with Benchmade on Instagram, and apparently those are definitely separate sheets of G10, but they are all pushed together, so sometimes they kind of squish over each other a little bit, and when they cut the slabs of it, kind of makes that bleeding effect. So that's just something interesting to note. Now, so is this knife still the best EDC knife you can get this year, as I proclaimed in my June review? Well, I think it's close, especially if you're buying it for someone as a gift who might not be as much of a knife enthusiast as you, but still appreciates quality. Or even if you yourself aren't so much a super knife collector enthusiast, but you just want something that is good, that works, that's classic, then it's a great one. And it really is just that perfecting that great formula that Benchmade already had. For most knife people, though, it's probably a bit of a bold statement. Even this year, we've had a few really good knives take off in this price and purpose range, so the 3 to 3.5 inch pure EDC folders. See, I even like the Spyderco Mantra a bit more. It's got a different and nearly equal steel with a few different idiosyncrasies to it. It's got a great flipper action once it's lubricated, and I like the grind a little bit better as well. That's my preference. You might have titanium frame lock fatigue though, and this might be just what you're after. Other knives to consider: the ZT Zero Tolerance 0450, Lion Steel TRE, Spyderco Native 5 perhaps, or even the Boca Excalibur 1. All compete really well in this class and level of desirability. It'll all just come down to your taste if you're more of a knife buff, what you have in your collection, and what kind of mechanisms you enjoy the most, and what kind of knife you want to buy next. Still, one of the stronger offerings for an EDC knife this year, especially a broad shooting basic one. The steel, the G10 handle upgrade, and just the classic Griptillian stuff that really is never going to be bad is certainly making this a pack leader. The cost is something that will sneak up on you. $250 in Australia, perhaps. 180, 150 if you're lucky in America. It's a lot to spend on a little knife like this. If you're after something a bit more posh, perhaps look into the Benchmade Valet. Or if you're after something a bit heavier, I'd say look at the Benchmade 940 series. There's a bit going on from Benchmade. It's all a bit samey, but they've definitely got other knives if you are after this, but perhaps after something in a little bit different material. The Valet is actually a pretty good choice. Just cuts a bit more of a classy silhouette, bit of a smaller, more gentlemanly knife. Something a bit different if you're not just after another grip. But overall, classic design platform, still really happy with this knife. Other knives I have enjoyed slightly more throughout the year in hindsight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.